What we're here today is the marching band with PE course option with the innovative approaches option that we have in the application. So we'll walk through that application a little bit today, what that looks like, and some of the changes that have happened with the new physical education standards. So I know Christina has already introduced us, but just so you can put some names and faces and some contact information and exactly what we do. I am Ben Needham. I am the Ed Associate for Health and Physical Education here in the Office of Assessment and Standards. And there's my email. And then Roger Simpson, he is our Education Associate for Visual and Performing Arts. And this has been a very collaborative effort. I'm really excited to have Roger a part of this process because it is so much greater when we can kind of, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there, where we can bounce things off each other and make sure that we are really thinking about not just our side of the equation, but both sides of the equation so that we can give you hopefully the best information possible for this webinar today. All right, so two main objectives to hit on today within our presentation. One is to understand the changes within the PE standards. There has been a pretty big shift in the way the PE standards look and how they're applied now. So we definitely need to look a little bit at how that's going to apply to this process for the application. And we gain some clarity on how to complete the application. So there may be some of you that are new that have never done the application before. So we'll walk through that process a little bit. And then also through a few of the changes for those that maybe have done it in the past, there's been some minor tweaks to the application as well. So we'll walk you through what those look like as well today. So just so you kind of get an idea of where we're going, what this is going to look like, we're going to start with looking at our articulations from our 2014 to our 2021 standards and any of the new content that you're going to see in there that needs to be addressed. We'll review the comprehensive health instruction portion of the application, what needs to be done for that part of it. We'll then have a question, kind of a question break, a section in there, a small break, and then those that have kind of just needed that review of the new information, at that point in time, if you wanted to sign off, you'd be probably good to do so. But if you wanted to hang around and get a review of the entire application process, we'll then come back after that break and go through the entire application process and show you what that looks like page by page and kind of go through each box so that you can ask questions if need be through that process, and then finish that up with questions there, and then that would be what we have for you all today. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on into the fun stuff here. I do want to mention that through this process, this is something that Roger has done before. So it's actually really great having him here on board. The first round of applications, he was a part of that process. So if there are questions that come up about how to fill this out, what do you do, he's a really great resource for us in that when we get to anything like that. So he can kind of walk you through how he did that when he was filling out the application the first go around. So this is the marching band only section of the application, and those that have seen it before, you'll notice it has changed slightly. The content more or less is the same, but there is a little bit more clarity there on question number 9. We now have an A and a B portion to that, and so we're going to start off looking at that A portion, which is looking specifically at the physical education standards. So what needs to be done to deal with A, and it's not going to be a huge amount in this box here. There will be a small description here, but there's going to be a lot more that you're going to have to fill out later on to show where the connections are happening with the marching band course along with the physical education standards. And so for those that have done it in the past, I'm going to start with where there's things that are similar, where there's been some changes, and then where there's been some additions that need to be addressed within that whole process there. So overall, so you can kind of follow through and or walk along with me and understand how we came about with this process. First off, I want you to understand the change. So if you've never seen the documents before, you can understand why this webinar really is needed because of the drastic shift within our document itself. So what you see on the screen right now is what our document for physical education standards looked like back in 2014. You can see for each indicator there was one statement, and that was the only statement that needed to be addressed for any given indicator across the entire set of standards. Well, if I click here, you can see for 2021, they now look a little bit different. So this is just one indicator with a lot more information up there, and you'll notice that there are 3 different proficiency levels there. So in order for you to be able to effectively fill out this application, you need to know which levels to address for each given indicator. So we will go over that today, and there also will be a guiding document that will be made available to you at the end of this as well. That will walk through each individual indicator to which level it needs to be addressed throughout. Here's the kind of highlights. I just spoke about the proficiency levels. There obviously are 3 proficiency levels. One of those needs to be addressed within the application specifically. And how those were determined was from an actual team of current Physical Education 1 teachers that are out in schools right now. They went through the current standards and determined which proficiency level is the appropriate level for that particular course. So from their guidance and through some discussion and deliberation with them, we were able to determine which level is appropriate for each indicator. And so that's what we will be using for the application and for going forward for all our courses within PE1 with the new standards. So what you need to know within there are 8 indicators that articulate at a lower or equal level. So basically means if you filled this out before those 8 indicators, you're good to go. There's a couple of them you have to change the numbers on, but they will be the same as you had seen prior. There will be 10 indicators that do articulate, but at a higher proficiency level. So for instance, maybe in the old document, it would have been what's now considered the intermediate proficiency level, but 2021, we're now expecting it to be at the advanced proficiency level. So the content will be similar, but the expectation of rigor is going to be slightly higher. So you'll have to address that change with that expectation of proficiency level within your application. So there's 10 of those. And then there are 9 brand new indicators that were not in the old document at all that will need to be addressed within this new application here. So I'm going to start us off with those 8 indicators that are similar or equal. So those ones on your left-hand side in the green section there are straight articulations over number and everything. So 2.1, 3.2, and 4.4 are straight. You can use the numbers you had before with the new ones. On your right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that we have articulations, but the numbers change a little bit. The only one that's slightly weird is that 5.1. You'll notice that 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 have all collapsed together into 5.1. So your 5.1 number actually could copy over as well, but you would need to make some changes to any indications as to where 5.2 and 5.3 fall within the articulation with your course. And then you can see the changes in numbers for the other 2 over there on the right-hand side. For the 10 indicators that have change in proficiency levels, the ones again on the left are ones where the numbers are identical. So from the 2014 document to the 2021 document, the numbers have not changed, but there's a change in proficiency level. So these are ones that in 2014 were being addressed at a lower level than is expected now. So you would need to make sure that you're speaking to that in your application, potentially making changes to how instruction is happening so that it is happening at that appropriate level now for those particular indicators. And then the 2 on the right, same thing, the content is at a higher level, but the numbers also do change for 1.2 and 4.3. Respectively, you can see there that one went up 1 and one went down 1 as far as the numbers are concerned within the standards documents there. And then lastly, the 9 brand new indicators within the 2021 document, you can see they're 1.2, 2.5, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, 4.4, 4.5, and 5.2. Those numbers there are specifically from the 2021 document. So there will not be articulation for those numbers because they are brand new. So when I'm speaking to these numbers, these would be ones you would find only within the brand new 2021 standards. To give you a quick summary of what we just went over there, as far as changes and revisions that are needed, there's no changes needed for anyone that indicated 2.1, 3.2, 4.4, and 5.1 prior. There needs to be a change in number, but not into proficiency level or anything for 4.2, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. And then there was revisions required for the ones listed over there on the right-hand side. Now, again, this is being recorded, and we will be giving you a document with guidance of all this, so you don't need to be necessarily jotting these all down right now. So you can always go back and view this, and then the document I will give you, it does have a nice table that aligns all of these numbers for you in one sheet of paper, so it's a little bit easier to find that way. And then lastly, our additions, you can see we had an addition of a benchmark or an indicator at standard 1, 2, and 5. We added 2 there for standard 4, and then added 4 new indicators for standard 3. And so there is no 2014 articulation for any of these indicators that are listed on your screen right now. All right, the big one, the one you all want to know is, well, which proficiency level are we supposed to hit for each indicator? That's great that we have these indicators, but where are we supposed to be? So again, this will be in a document for you, so you don't need to write these all down. If you want to take a picture of your screen, whatever, that's fine as well. But it will be available in a document for you after this webinar today. But this gives you an idea of the proficiency levels that are expected for each indicator within the 2021 document. So you can see it's not just straight novice, not just straight intermediate or advanced. There is a combination of the 3 depending upon the content that's provided, that is present within each particular indicator there. So if there was a change to a higher level, that's why you will see that the content is similar, but again, a higher level is expected there. And so just wanted to give you a visual of what that looked like, so that when you get to the document, you can see which level needs to be addressed for each particular indicator there. I'm going to move into the health portion real quick, and then we will take questions on this section in just a moment. But I do want to talk about that other change within the document that does look at the new 9B question, which used to be kind of integrated in with the number 9 itself. And this is how I explain how marching band students will receive comprehensive health instruction. As you may know, that health instruction can happen in multiple ways here in South Carolina, depending on your district. Some do it through physical education, some choose to do it through sciences, some combination thereof of other courses. So it can happen in lots of different ways. So if there needs to be a description as to how it is that students in this course are going to be getting health education, so that if it is something that needs to be added, that you have a plan in place for that. So again, providing that statement as to how they're going to receive that, and then just a reminder to you that health education must be provided by a South Carolina qualified teacher. So if this is something that's typically done through PE1, many marching band teachers are not going to have the qualifications in order to teach health. So there would need to be an option for those students to be able to get that instruction from a qualified instructor. And so I did want to let you know who those qualified instructors are in case you were not aware or needed to, or you wanted a refresher of that. For courses 3401 and 3402, which deal with the comprehensive health education, these are the certified areas that qualify for teaching health education. So it would be science, health, PE, your health science technology with a health-related field, bachelor's degree, general science, and then that health and PE, and then the part-time one as well. So those numbers in parentheses are the actual certification code numbers for them as well, if you wanted to have those. So that is who can be, who is qualified to provide instruction within the comprehensive health education instruction there. If you are to use the Human Growth and Development course 3403, you add a couple other qualified instructors within there. We add biology and the family and consumer sciences certified instructors can also, if it's being taught through this avenue here. All right, so that leads us to our first area of questions. I know I just spit a whole bunch at you real quickly there. So I'm going to take a step back for a minute and let you all, Roger, I'll first go to you. Are there any questions from the chat that maybe we need to hit on first?
No, nothing in the chat yet. Here's one coming in. Can the health education be taken through virtual SC?
That is an option that could be possible as one of the options for students, yes. But that would ever need to be a specific for what your district's, how we're going to do that, because not necessarily every student may be able to use that option, but that is an option that would be available to some students, yes.
Next up, what about if a district is a franchise of virtual SC?
That is a good question. Does any of my colleagues on here, can anyone speak to that?
Ben, let me help with this. There may be some questions you all asked that we will need to talk with another office within our division and sometimes outside of our division. So I'll ask Sandra to make note of that one from you, Gary. I'm sorry, Jenny, I'll make sure we have note of that and we will follow up with you. So Jenny, if you will put your email address in for us, we want to make sure we'll get that answer to you, and we'll include that with the summary to everyone else.
I can speak a little bit because Charleston County is a franchise of Virtual SC, and we do have band students that take health through Virtual SC if they're not taken in the classroom.
Virtual SC is within our division, but another office. So I want to make sure we vet our response before we offer you one.
Okay.
Thank you for the email that you've included for us.
Next question, is comprehensive health, sex ed, the only area of overall health curriculum that band students need, or are they also served all student outcomes in health?
So health is a separate area that needs to be addressed. Now, it would obviously not take place within this course, what we're talking about today, because this is looking specifically at the PE standards. But yes, all of the components of comprehensive health, which does include reproductive health, family health, and magnitude of other content areas, that instruction does need to be provided to all students.
All right, we have one individual who's completed the old application and wants to know, does he need to start over with the new application and enter the new physical education standards?
Yes, so the old applications, if the new numbers are not on there, we won't be able to find a placement, and you can see there's also some new indicators. So one of the big reasons for this webinar today is to speak to that. And so we do apologize for some of the inconvenience for those of you that have filled it out, and we do appreciate you wanting to be eager to get them in, but hopefully we can, this will help you, guide you in getting that, getting those updates made.
Benjamin, just to make sure if there's any frustrations about that, we regret that may have happened, but we have communicated this for 2 months now to those that attend the superintendent's meetings. And if that information did not make it to you all, hopefully it will not be too inconvenient for you to start anew. And we'll lead you through the process as what that looks like. Benjamin, we've got more questions coming in, but I know you've got a few more things you'd like to cover. So, and we've talked about some.
I've got some time for questions. That's fine. I purposely built this break, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
I can continue, but when we're ready to move on, I can reply to some of these
Okay.
questions in the chat whenever you're ready. So
Okay.
Another question which you're about to go into, one asked, where can I find the new application?
Yeah, so I will hit on that. I'm going to go through the whole application process here in just a moment for those of you that may need to go through that, would like to go through that.
And then if there's a local district policy that requires all students to take health, does that cover the health requirements?
Yeah, so if your district has a separate health course and that's something that all students are taking outside of the physical education setting, that would be sufficient to meeting that requirement, but you would need to specify that that's what's happening on the application so that we're aware that comprehensive health is not something that is going to be not taught because these students are being removed from physical education.
Here's a good question for a lot of folks. So is it because of the new standards that we have to reapply? And maybe some folks aren't aware of the time period.
That's a really good question. So it's a kind of a yes and no. So every 3 years, an application does have to be resubmitted and approved. So many of you that were the early adopters submitted your first application, 3 years ago. So you would have had to resubmit this year anyhow because of that time, that time lapse. However, others of you that submitted 1 or 2 years ago, typically you would have that whole 3-year period, but because there are new standards, it is required that everyone must submit a new application because of the changes to the curriculum and to the standards there and things that need to be mentioned through that course. So it's a yes and no, kind of depending upon when you submitted your application.
So next, will band instructors facilitate the FitnessGram testing, or are band students exempt from that?
Fitness testing is part of the requirement with students in a PE1 course. So how you want to go about that is going to be a local decision.
And the course number, will the original course numbers still be in place that were issued on the initial approvals?
That's a fantastic question. Actually, Roger and I, we just had this discussion a day ago, about that. There will be new course code numbers provided to you. So when your application has been, a new number will be provided to you at that time. So your old codes will not work. They have been taken out of the system. Those ones are no longer valid.
And here's a good one for folks that might be logging off here soon. What's the deadline for having the new application submitted?
So the deadline, we have a 30-day turnaround here for all of these applications. So we would need your application no later than 30 days prior to your first day of instruction, first day of school for your students. So it's going to vary depending on each district. So whatever your first day of school is, we need it no later than 30 days prior to that date.
And for clarity there, that's 30 calendar days, not or 30 business days, not 30 calendar days. I'm sorry, 30 business days, 6 weeks.
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Roger, for that.
All right, that looks like we're caught up on the questions.
Great. Well, those are great questions. I appreciate all those questions, and hopefully that does provide you some of the clarity on those things there. We're doing pretty good on time here, so I'm actually quite happy with this. I did build in a break if anyone needs. We have been sitting here for about a half hour. The PE person in me says you should all stand up. If you're not standing, everyone do that. Get the blood flowing so that you actually have your attention here for the next section of this. If you go use the restroom, this would be a great time to go do that as well. But we will go ahead and move along. In this next section here, we're going to go over the entire application process, what it looks like from cover to end. And it's not a huge document, so this hopefully won't take a large amount of time either. But for those of you that have maybe never done this process before, I did want to give you the opportunity to see what it looks like and ask questions about each individual box. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but sometimes there's some little nuances and maybe some things that, since you have not seen it before, you have some questions that may need some clarity for you on that. So we're going to go ahead and just move on along into this next section at looking at the application as a whole. So first off, you can see that the application can be found at the web address down there. I don't know if Roger, if you're able to copy and paste that into the chat for folks. But that is where you can find this application, and it's freshly updated today, ready for you with the 2022-23 school year on there, and our edits to that marching band section that we just spoke about in the first portion of the webinar today. So you can download it in either PDF or Word format, whichever is your preference, and fill it out digitally or fill it out by hand if you really so desire to do that as well. So on this first page, and we kind of spoke to this first part of it just a second ago with that great question about when it's due. I did want to highlight again that it is due 30 days from the date of submission. So we do need 30 days to submit that, to process that. So you would need to use 30 business days from the start of your school calendar so that we have an appropriate amount of time to process these applications for you and get the codes and everything out to you so that all can happen. On this first page, you can see it's really just filling out some information so we know who you are and your district. the name of the person filling out the application, whether it's a coordinator or a band director or teacher, someone, whoever it might be, is they put their information there in their position, their mailing address, and then obviously other contact phone numbers and those sorts of things on the first page. I'm hoping that this is not a page that will be difficult for us all to fill out. It's a pretty self-explanatory, straightforward stuff. But if you do have a question, by all means, please do or jot them down, and we can answer those at the end of this portion here. All right, moving on to the next pages within the document. You can see that we do have some more sort of just information we need gathered so we know who it is and what it is we're speaking to here. So email addresses of those people, what the course is. So this would be your marching band with PE, of course, our marching band would be the course here. Your subject areas that you're going to be addressing, which would be your marching band and physical education. So those are the content areas that we're addressing here. And then the length of the course, which typically that was going to be a year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, there. That's typically going to be a year-long course for marching band. Grade level, obviously, for the PE credit is going to be the high school level or 9th grade. For that there, the beginning would be obviously the first day that instruction is taking place, and then the last day of the course will be happening as well. Now that last box there where it says schools, you can see there is a parentheses with that S there. So if you are within a district that has multiple high schools that are going to be offering this option, you don't have to fill out multiple applications. You can do it one time, but you need to list all of the schools and all of the instructors that are going to be a part of that on these pages here. So if you had 3 high schools, you would list all 3 high schools that were going to be doing this. You would list the teachers' names of all 3 schools here, put their certification numbers and all that information that's asking here down below of who's going to be providing that instruction. So it would be helpful on our end that if you did specify which school those people are located so that we can understand that this person is associated with this school, this person's associated with that school, and so on and so forth, so that we can see that connection as to who's doing what at each individual school. But again, you can do it all on one application. There's no need to submit multiple applications for the same district. So you can put it all here. If you do need more pages, you can attach those to this. If you use the Word document, you can obviously make the boxes bigger as well. So however you do that, as long as all that information is attached here, that is perfectly fine. So that we know who is providing instruction for each school. Down below here in numbers questions 1 and 2, you're going to give a short description of the course. So what is happening to the course as far as marching band and PE is concerned, to give us a description of what's going on there. Roger, you want to speak a little bit to kind of what you've done with that in the past?
Sure, I can. And it's good to see so many arts coordinators here in the meeting. And I'm sure that for many of you, you're here and you're thinking about, okay, well, let me take our current application and see how we can make these changes. And what I would encourage you to do is to be sure to get your educators involved, because as Ben mentioned a second ago, it could be one application for multiple schools, but your educators are going to have to agree on the timeline of that curriculum. So as long as they're in agreement, that would be fine. Now, yes, I was involved with the writing of this early on in the process. What we did, we got our band directors together, went through the standards, and created the timeline and alignment for all of those standards, both the arts and the arts and the physical education health. So it's important to make sure that in the alignments of those, that both are covered through the course of the time period for the class.
Thanks, Roger. I appreciate that. It's helpful for those that maybe are going through this for the first time, or even those that are looking to resubmit here. So walking through this, you can see the description is explaining all why you're doing this course. What is why it's that number. That question number 2 there was explain how the needs assessment conducted at the local level substantiates the need for this course. So what is the why is there a need to particularly have marching band and PE together? And so speaking to that and how that is a need within your district, you would just need to put that that statement in there in that particular box. On the next page here, you can see that this is looking at the criteria that the students, the prerequisites that might be required for this particular course. So I don't know how many there may be, if any, but you would need to be listing any sort of requirements and things that would need to be criteria that students would need to get in there. A lot of times there's, I'm sure, the requirement to get into marching band. So what are those requirements that these students into that particular program in the first place? Just need to outline that process and what that looks like for your district. Let's propose teaching methodologies that will be used in the course. So is it, how are you going to go about teaching that? So just list out the different modes in which that will be taking place. Then the number 5, give a course syllabus. This is extremely helpful for understanding what's going to be going on. And that is a place where I've seen it done with, depending on the district, some will put their connections with the standards within the syllabus. Some will do a separate document. As long as we can see that and really understand what's going on with that sort of timeline that Roger was mentioning, and that collaboration from the educators, we can see really what's going on within the courses. So attaching that is a requirement. So you don't necessarily need to put anything in 500C attached, but you would need to make sure that that is a part of the packet that you're turning in. Any textbooks, curriculum, anything that you're using, any resources that you'll be using for the course, list those materials there. So if you are using a PE textbook, for instance, that would be something you would want to list on the application there. And then number 7, demonstrate an alignment with the proposed course using the chart at the end. And so I'm going to show you that chart in a second, and then Roger and I are going to kind of talk you through that, because that chart is really made for non-marching band courses that are using this application. So we'll talk a little bit about how that might be done a little bit differently for you all, and so that it's a little bit clearer and cleaner for those connections that need to be made between the arts standards and the physical education standards. All right, then you can see that 8, 9, and 10, those are the specific marching band ones, and we've talked about number 9 already, and we'll talk about what that looks like on that table in just a moment. But I did want to bring your attention to number 8 here. That you need to attach a PowerSchool master schedule for each school that this application is for. And so you may not have that available at the time of submitting your application. That's fine, but you do need to make sure that they are submitted to the department by July 31st at the latest. So don't let that be a hindrance for submitting early. So you can submit, and we can do that, but without those PowerSchool schedules submitted, the application cannot be formally approved until those are received by our department here, by our office. So make sure both of those items do make it. I would recommend doing it all at once, just so you don't have to come back and check on it. But really that is up to you if you wanted to submit before that was ready, and then make a second submission with the master schedules there for us. Number 9, again, we went through that. And then number 10, looking at sort of the period, the time of day, what are the period, when is marching band going to be offered? Speak to that, and you can give that explanation on the syllabus page, or even on the page where you're going to list out those connections within the different content area standards there. All right, so let's look at that page that has the table. And so as I was mentioning, this table is really made for courses that aren't marching band. Now, you could use this table, you're more than welcome to do that. But what we typically see with these marching band applications is a different table attached that speaks to the unit title. So we still have that first column, it'll still have the academic standards. But what's missing here is that we need 2 standards columns. We need an arts column, and we need a physical education standards home. So you would want to make sure both are there. And so, Roger, I'm going to actually turn it back over to you here because I could kind of walk me through. I know that since you've done this, a little, might be able to kind of walk the nuances and the particular things that will help us with looking at the application and approving them.
Sure, Ben, I'd be happy to. So you'll see this chart or format as is. Know that it doesn't have to be this page in this format. So as Ben said, this is set up for a single course offering. And what's essentially going on is we're taking two courses and combining them into one. So if you simply wanted to create a new spreadsheet and list the timeline of your units when those are taking place, take during that unit of study or that timeline of study, have a column for the music standards that will be covered, instrumental music standards, have a column for the physical education and health standards as they are in that unit, and then go through. That would suffice as well. So we just want to make sure that we're seeing all of the standards being covered over the course of study. So if you want to use something that you've created that works better than this, that's fine. And as he said, if you want to use this, you can use it as well. So just understand that we are looking for the standards being covered. How you want to present it to us is fine if you have a different approach.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as we can see that the format in which you submit it to us is really up to you. So however, that might be more user friendly for you, that is perfectly fine for that portion of it. All right, and then the final page. Oh, hold on a second. What's going on here? There we go. Final page is just the signatures page, and so one thing I did want to mention about this page is that you'll see there's only 2 spots for teachers to sign in there. So you might be able to fill it out with one school. You may have two band directors, and they're going to both sign this, and now you have no more lines left for teachers, and you're trying to submit this for 3 schools. That's fine. You can just submit another page. So you can attach additional signature pages to this if there's not enough lines for all the individuals that are a part of the application. So don't feel limited by what's on this one page. If those people are a part of the application, we do need their signature. So, add an additional signature page, add more pages behind it, whatever you might need so that we can verify that all individuals that are a part of this course signatures are included within the submission there. So that's the whole application. So nothing overly hopefully laborious for you all, but I did want you to at least see what that looks like, so that you can. Some of you maybe you're laying your eyes on it for the first time, and now you can kind of think about what needs to be going in each of the individual areas there. So now that we've done that, I do want to pause again to give you all opportunities to ask more questions that maybe have come up from this portion of it, or maybe you, after going through that, you had some more questions that weren't addressed from the first section as well. So please feel free to unmute or use the chat box at this time to ask any questions you might have. So Roger, I'm going to shoot it back over to you to see if there's anything. Oh, Christina, do you have something you want to?
Yeah, first let me say this, because we have people that we've exceeded some time they maybe had planned to spend with us. Roger, if you will re-enter your email address and Benjamin's email address, and as Roger copies and pastes that back in, I appreciate the work of Roger and Benjamin. This is the first time our office has had a combined effort like this to support districts. So I celebrate that. We continue to write new chapters of history, and we want you all to understand this will be a successful webinar if you are able to get approval your first submission. So having these emails of contact information, let us be partners of yours when you have questions, if you have interest in doing this, because this is optional, not required. Some of you have experience already. You have the confidence. Others of you may have some questions of curiosity of, is this right for us right now? Use our experts of Benjamin and Roger so they can be supportive of your vision and also the process. For those of you that have the information you need, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be sending this out via Hannah and the SCASA links, so you'll be getting this information available. If you have questions or are curious what answers may be to questions maybe you've not thought of, please will linger around. We call it listen and linger. So we will be listening and lingering and watching. So first we're going to look at the chat of what's submitted there to prevent several from trying to unmute at once and making it awkward with the number we still have on the call. So Roger, if you'll facilitate the questions we have coming in so that we can answer those questions as some exit and others choose to stay on with us.
Sure can. So if an application is not approved upon their first submission, are they allowed to make corrections and resubmit?
So we'll give you the feedback as to why it was not approved, and so you would have the opportunity to use that feedback to make any corrections to your application and then resubmit it at that time. Just be aware that obviously that 30-day timeline still does apply. So if you do apply kind of late in the game and you get denied, you may run out of time to actually get approval. So you should be taking that into consideration.
So far, that's it on the questions, and that was a good one.
That was a really good one. Yes, I would agree.
Just out of curiosity, how many districts have applied?
Well, no one's officially applied yet with this new application, so no one.
Yeah, a little background on that. We had one district recently that did see the timeline and resubmitted, and so that's why Ben has worked to put this together to help folks through the process. And he and I are both new to the department, so the exact knowledge of how many have applied, we would have to get back to you on. Yeah. All right, looks like that's it. Lots of thank yous. Kudos to Ben, great job. Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Ben, very much. Very appreciative, proud.
I do want to show you one thing before you all go, of the document that will be up there. It will be a PDF that will be available on our website and wherever you can find the slide deck as well. It'll be available. But this is the document that was kind of your one-stop shop with all those benchmark proficiency levels for you, so you won't have to go looking through all the different slides. I did make this nice. I hopefully try to put it all on one page for you so you can follow through with what needs to happen with the 2021 standards there. But other than that, thank you again. To say the same thing that Roger said, we do appreciate you all being here today. And just like Christina said, we are here to support you. We want to help you with this process. So we are, please do email us if the questions come up later on in this. Maybe some of that you're going, I'm not quite sure how to do. Please let us know. We would be more than happy to assist you with that. So we will listen and linger. Those of you that want to hang out and have other questions, maybe that are more one-on-one, we will hang out for you. Otherwise, it was great seeing you all. Thank you for being here today.